What's up, YouTube? This is No Face. Back to you again with my BD125, aka Boomcat. I love this motorcycle. I just hate all the problems that come with it. It's a good motorcycle, it's just very cheap parts on it. So expect to do a lot of tinkering with it to make it work right. And yeah, it looks kind of like a old school Triumph motorcycle. I would say like in the 1960s and 70s, or just around that era. This is what this motorcycle looks like. Right now the seat's taken off, so it looks like a mess. Sorry about the garage, it's a mess too. But the reason for this video is to help anyone who has a Chinese motorcycle, specifically one that gets shipped to your house, one that's made by Boom, or Bao Dao, Jiangsu, Locomotive, whatever their name is. Um, yeah, Chinese motorcycles. I know all are going to run into this problem because of the cheap parts, and I'll tell you what's wrong. The switch stopped working. And when I say switch, I mean the starting button. So you turn the key switch on, you hit the uh, emergency, whatever that's called, I forgot what it's called. So you turn the key switch on, you hit the emergency button, and then you hit the start button. And if you need to know what I'm talking about, the key, you turn that, then you go over here and you hit that switch right there, and then after those two things are done, you want to hit the start button, and you'll hear it kick over, and yeah, the bike will eventually start after pressing it. If you press it too much, you'll drain your battery, and these batteries are cheap, they drain real quick, especially this motorcycle. I don't know what's wrong with it, but the battery likes to drain quick. So if it's not starting, just use the kickstart. It's right down there. You can see it. Anyways, the start button stopped working. So what do? Well, what I did, and I messed up. So the first thing I want to warn everybody who's going to do this is try not to mess with the wiring. The wiring's good. There's nothing wrong with it. They did a good job with it, honestly. I didn't label it. And what I mean I didn't label it, it's like I took this piece off, all those buttons, I took the whole unit off. Then I went to all the wiring connections inside of the headlight, and what I did was I looked at what wires were inside that switch, and I had bought a new switch thinking it's the button that's not working, and that's not the case. Well, I ended up cutting the tips off because the connectors weren't the same, and my dumb self forgot to label the wires, and I didn't know what wires went where, and I think I got it working. Everything works. My horn stopped working actually, and it was working, so I know the wire probably came loose or just something happened to where the horn's not working. So I got to go back in there and see what happened with that. And I forgot which wire that was, but going back to the start button issue, I ended up getting everything wired to where it works and realized that it's not that unit that's not working, it's something else. Now, I came back here thinking, you know what? It's probably the CDI. The computer's messing up and it's not starting the bike. Wrong. I checked the voltages on each one of those units. This is the voltage regulator. It regulates the voltage, takes 12 volts and turns it into low voltage that goes into the CDI, and the CDI takes that voltage and computes it. And I think that's that's either a uh, rev, whatever, I don't know, a rev filter or a rev stop, whatever they call it, something that makes it so you don't rev the bike too high so you can't damage the engine. Going back, that's a voltage regulator right there, the unit with the lines on it. Those are just a bunch of wire connections right there inside the sleeve. That is a rev thing, or that is a relay, I think. That's what I think that is. That is the CDI right there. It's a 4-pin, I think, CDI. You know, it's Bao Dao motorcycles are the only ones that use this CDI. If you try to buy that nice blue one, you're just going to waste your money, because I think that's a 6-pin. This is only a 4-pin, so don't waste your money. And after I checked all the voltages, I don't have the diagram, and I asked the Power Sports Max if they had the diagram, and they said they didn't have the wiring diagram, but they were willing to send me all the parts, and they actually did. They sent me every single part except for the solenoid, and I already found the issue before I received all the parts. The issue is the solenoid. And how did I find that? I went on Google and I typed in start button doesn't work, and there was a checklist, and I went down the checklist, and eventually I came to the conclusion that it's the solenoid, because in that checklist it told me to take a screwdriver or some type of tool and take the sleeves off of the solenoid, and I'll point to it for you. It's right in there. It's like a cylinder shaped thing with two bolts on it. There's a red and black sleeve over it. Well, long story short, I took the sleeves off, and the negative looks like it's on the left and the positive is on the right. I took a screwdriver and I touched those two, the positive and the negative, at the same time while the bike was on. And guess what happened? Oh, the bike kicked over. The starter motor went off and it started the bike. Why did it start the bike? Well, I shorted it, meaning that I basically made the connection happen. That's what your button's doing. Your button is basically shorting it, making the connection happen, which is sending that power from that short. Basically, imagine when you short something, it sparks. So that spark, that power, instead of the spark flying in the air because you took a screwdriver and touched those two tips, the spark is supposed to go, when you push the button, that spark goes into that starter motor, which is right there. Where is it? There it is. You see it right there behind my speaker? It's right behind it. Yeah, you can't really see it, but there you go. You can see it now. You see the wire going into it? Yeah. Well, that power from when you hit the button, it shorts it and sends that power into the starter motor, and that starts your motorcycle. Well, I switched out the solenoid, and guess what? The motorcycle works. But at first it didn't work. I was worried because the battery was dead. So the only thing it did was go click, 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 click. And I thought it didn't work, and I kind of felt like I gave up. But I still acted like everything worked, and I put everything back together. And I came back out. I charged my battery just to make sure it wasn't the dead battery. And guess what? 6 hours later, bam, this thing started right up like a beauty. So I just want to tell you, I'm sorry for the length of this video. I was trying to explain everything that I went through, and so nobody has to waste their time, because I wasted a lot of time trying to figure out what's wrong. And I see on OfferUp a lot of people are posting motorcycles, Chinese ones, that they say the starter button doesn't work. And luckily have a lot of experience as an electrician and a lot of experience as a electronics assembler, and I'm also a computer IT person, so I know this stuff. This stuff is like, I love this stuff. This is my hobby, so I figured it out. If your start button doesn't work on these Chinese motorcycles, this one's a BD125-2 by Bao Dao Jiangsu Locomotive. His nickname is the Boomcat. If your starter button stops working, this is the issue. It's the solenoid, which is that cylinder shaped device right there with the red sleeve on it, and there's a black sleeve too, it's just not covering it. Yeah, but long story short, if you're wondering why everything's shiny, it's because I just sprayed a coat of rubber sealant over everything. So I think what happened was, with me, was I was riding out in the rain. It was barely raining, but water probably got in there, and water is a conductor, so it probably shorted it and destroyed the solenoid. So don't ride in water with these Chinese bikes, and it's your solenoid that's the problem. That's the first issue, most likely, and it's a cheap part. It's $5 on Amazon. I think as long as it's 12 volts, you could use any one. Just buy a $5 one. There's a lot of $5 ones. Just buy the first one that pops up when you type in whatever CC bike you have, solenoid. Like I typed in 125cc solenoid, and $5, Amazon. Anyways, I hope that helps you. I don't know if there's other videos explaining this situation, but I hope my video helps you so you don't have to waste your time. That's why I made this for you guys. Alright, this is No Face. I gotta go. chill with my wife now. It's my anniversary. Alright, you guys. Love you guys. Peace.